I think my advice for the people is just respect your journey, because I know that nowadays we want to grow fast in the career, in our life. But one of my advice is first respect your journey, because we are talking with Phil. I met Phil 5 years ago, and I was working 5 years before to meet him. So my journey in cybersecurity is about 10 years. 10 years is a journey. It's not about 10 days or even 10 months. It's about 10 years.
Welcome to the Philip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Philip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Philip Wylie Show. Today I'm excited to have my friend Filipi joining today. Filipi and I have known each other for several years through the virtual cybersecurity community or hacker community, but then we got to meet in person finally after the pandemic kind of eased up and we're able to get out in person again. But we did a lot of virtual conferences and stuff together. It's kind of really how we really got to know each other, because we're both part of the Red Team Village and some of the other things that Texas Cyber Summit was running during that time. And so we finally got to meet. It's been probably 2 or 3 years ago now, probably 2022, was it, that we met for the first time?
Yeah, I think yes, 2022. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it was
Person.
good
Yeah.
to meet you. It was during DEF CON. So been able to see Filipi several times since then. So welcome to the show. It's great to have you.
Thank you so much, Phil. It's always a pleasure, to be here to talk with you. So before this, it's interesting part of the show. Before to talk with the show, we were talking a lot, and okay, we should talk in the podcast. Okay, let's go to the podcast because it's always good to talk, man. It's nice. Thank you for having me here. I think that's we started long years ago, and first virtually, and the first time was in person. I remember we spent, I think, 3 or 4 hours talking at the night in the bar. Remember, drink some water and Sprite. And it was very fun. And after that, as you said, so we totally involved with the different events and similar events, talking together in different tracks. So the last time that we were together was in the Hackspace Con, right? If I remember correctly. Yeah, it was super nice. Again, thank you so much for having me here.
Thanks for being on. And for the listeners, he's joining us from Portugal. It's really late there.
No problem. Actually, that's an interesting thing, because the people ask me, okay, where you are living right now? And then my correct answer should be, okay, I'm leaving the airplane, I think, because I'm leaving, I don't know where I'm living, but anyway, now I'm here talking with you from Portugal, but sometimes I'm in Dallas, out of Dallas, next to you, by the way, and because I'm working focus on North America right now. So based on that, I need to be in Dallas region, not only Dallas specifically, but mainly in Dallas, but sometimes I need to be in other states in US because of the job, basically. So part of my time I'm living here in Portugal and live in US. So right now I'm talking Portugal, but I'm Brazilian, by the way. If the guys the listeners, so I'm Brazilian, but I'm living here in Portugal right now at this moment. I don't know tomorrow or after tomorrow where I will be.
So I always have my guests share their hacker origin stories. So if you wouldn't mind sharing your hacker origin story.
We have few histories about the hacker things. I think one of my experience was when I moved into Poland, I think, because I was working in the defensive side, and I received the offer to move into Poland to work as a penetration tester. So it was my first experience like working as a red teamer. I know that's the penetration testing red teamers is totally different. So I remember when I received this offer to move into Poland, I didn't have the experience to work with the red teamer. And the challenge with me was because I was moving to Poland, another country, another culture. And when I arrived this company, first step is, okay, so doing kind of interview with the customers, and they should decide what is the best penetration test they should choose for the project. But I remember at that time I was in the bench, and our team decided to create a proper red team to doing kind of different tasks. And I remember that time, okay, what I can do, because I'm starting in the offensive security. I had experience doing kind of labs or doing my proper, trying to do kind of bug bounty, something like this, but never working as an enterprise perspective. And I remember we divided the activities and tasks, and I remember they invited me to be part of the black box team. So was a very nice experience. Even I didn't have that time the experience. I had a very nice guy that led me and to give me some advice to doing a kind of black box and for the hack perspective. And I remember that I found some like domains open to the internet. And then I remember that time was the first step to go inside of the company. And I had this experience in 2019, and I have a quite similar experience when I moved in 2020 to Brazil in the middle of the pandemic. I was working in another company, and I have the same experience because we supposed to have an exploitation of this company because we have an incident internally. But when we do a kind of investigations, we discover that it's not discovered, but we figure that it's not exactly exploitation from some threat actor or something like this. Was a part of the red team, a company that was bought, this company that I was working in that time, and we decided, okay, let's do our red team right now. And that time I was responsible for lead this team, and in the middle of this 1 year specifically, I organized the another red team, and I was responsible for doing kind of investigations, and we discovered a kind of jank is exposed to the internet, and based on the janks, we found kind of AWS credentials and secrets and go inside. That was my experience and origin to start, let's say, in the hacking thing. So even sometimes when we don't have any, like, let's say, the proper experience, if you are, prepared for some urgent things, like you can do this, we can do this, we can do that. So was, again, I didn't have experience, but I was prepared. That's the thing.
Yeah, that's good advice that you have, that you are good points that you bring up, that people, it's important to have experience when getting these jobs sometimes, but it's like I tell people, if you're doing these hands-on labs and you're learning how to do that, if you know how to do certain things, you can answer the questions during the interviews and it may help you get a job. And there's instances where you could use those skills. So that's kind of a really good points that you're sharing there, that you didn't have the experience in those areas, but once you got the chance, you were able to do it because you'd learned in the labs.
Yeah, definitely. So when you talk about the offensive perspective, probably you know that, and many people know that you should, like, I'm advising some people right now at this moment. I'm advising my brother, by the way, look into the offensive perspective. And I said to him, okay, so thinking about the offensive perspective, so we should learn more about all those steps that you have in the offensive, let's say the offensive security. So doing the reconnaissance steps, doing the, figure in the network or investigate how many, IP addresses you have available, or domain, subdomain, doing these reconnaissance steps. And after that, you go trying to explore some open ports, or, looking the some possible web applications exposed to the internet to see how kind of vulnerability you can see. You can go inside. So this is a type of steps that you can do. Of course, to put in practical, you can create your own lab, or you can use the kind of platforms to help you with this, like Hack in the Box, Try Hack Me, and other platforms. And not only this, but if you see about, for example, Try Hack Me and even the Hack in the Box, you can create your proper lab, your room, you do a kind of exercise. And when you do this, you have this knowledge, but of course, you should prepare yourself to answer those questions, not only doing or executing tools like, for example, Nmap, but to understand how the Nmap works. So, or why you should work using, for example, T3 or T5. What's the difference if you set the command to the Nmap? Why I cannot use it, for example, T5 using the Nmap? Or why you should use it, for example, T3 or T1 when you do the Nmap? So you can use in tools, but you should understand how the tool works. So that's one of those concerns that you should have when you learn a kind of tool. If you learn those bases, you can really know and you can explain how the tool works. You can go, in a good way in the interviews. And not only this, but like, as I said, you should be prepared for the job that we receive.
So for anyone that's wanting to get started in offensive security, does that require a certification?
I think for now, actually nowadays, it's a kind of requirements, let's say, because for the people team or HR team or talent acquisition team, so sometimes they requesting they have a kind of requirements, like for example some certifications. I recommend usually three main certifications globally, let's say, looking from the Brazilian perspective or even the US perspective or even the Europe. So the three main companies that can do kind of certifications. One is Wine from the former A-Learn Security. The second one is like Offensive Security. The third one is SAMS. And of course, I know that kind of different about the pricings. And this is the three mains. Of course, there are others very nice certificates, but usually thinking about the kind of opportunities in the market for the talent acquisition team, they have a kind of requirements they request. For example, for the offensive security, your OSCP, for example. So if you don't have, sometimes they can eliminate you to participate in the interview process. But of course, it depends the company. But I think it's a kind of requirement, not only the finish the college, but you should have a kind of certificate. The question or the thing is, okay, I have the certification. So I really learning with the certifications or not learning? Let me just give an example. I know the OSCP, for example, you have, for example, like 48 hours to do the certification to, getting some discovery some vulnerabilities and explore the environment, and plus I think 24 hours to prepare the report. Like, so it's basically 3 days. So if you compare, like, however, in practical ways, if you is hiring for some company, you don't have 3 days to do the penetration testing. Usually you have a 1 week or maybe like 2 weeks. And for me, I know that the offensive security bring the urgency about this report. Prepare, okay, you have just 48 hours to finish this. But in the real life, that doesn't work this way. It's work a different way. But of course, they can bring you this urgency. I understand those type of things. So in my perspective, you should really learn each technique so you apply in the certification. Because if you just take the certification just to have the certification, you don't be prepared in the end of the day.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting to get the different points of view on certifications and stuff because some people, a lot of times they kind of share what they learned, what they know about it, what what got them experience. And that's kind of the same way when it comes to like hiring managers and college degrees or university degrees. If someone's got a degree, they kind of feel like it's needed. And so sometimes that can kind of change what hiring managers think. But then when you mention like HR, the talent acquisition people, they got a checkbox, they've got a job
Yeah.
description. So they really don't know sometimes that they could have like one of the best pen testers in the world talking to them. And they may not be able to figure that out because maybe they don't have a degree, maybe they don't have certifications, but they're really good. And the criteria they're giving to judge whether they're good candidates or not are just kind of limited to those check boxes.
Yeah, definitely. So I was doing some interviews for last 3 months, and it's interesting because usually in my interviews that I made for the last few months, that I said, I ask into the people, okay, what is your strengthening in the is about offensive security. Your training is about threat hunting, is about SOC. What is training? Usually the people, okay, I have my training here in penetration testing, offensive security, or in SOC and threat hunting. And okay, let's talking about that specifically, this topic. And when I made some questions like, okay, bring me some use case about, for example, how you can create a kind of rule focus on like SOC. If you have a kind of explaining what is the difference between IOC, IOAs, what is the kind of characteristics that can bring in, what kind of type the code if you'd like to create something, and it should be the training for the specific person that I interviewed. The people didn't know about that because they just know how they can use in tools. Okay, my company bought a specifically tool, and this tool has a specifically dashboard, and I go to the dashboard and click that and click that's it. But they don't know really how they could working on that. Like, that's the difference and the challenge nowadays, because we can see many people like producing content on YouTube channels, on other channels, but like just a formal video, and the people just copy and paste the comments in the video, but they don't understand how the things works. And that's a quite challenge from the companies to hiring people. So based on that, I think the talent acquisition team and the HR team decide to put in the checkbox. However, on the other hand, this is a big problem as well because, as you said, so many people they didn't finish the college, but they real good, professional people, and based on many things, and that's the criteria how we like could hire those people.
Yeah, that's the interesting thing about offensive security. Some of the best pen testers, red teamers, and hackers I know have no certifications, have
Mhm.
never taken certification courses, but they're really good. But just trying to get past that HR firewall is sometimes it's referred to. So what is the challenge like in requirements in like Europe and Brazil to get offensive security jobs? Is certifications as much of a requirement there?
Let me compare both. In Brazil, we have the first challenge in Brazil is a language because the people don't speak English good and they don't speak Spanish as well. And by the way, just to clarify, in Brazil we speak Portuguese, not Spanish. Okay, and that's the first challenge. So the people don't speak English, and based on that, they don't have a good opportunity. When some companies or some consulting companies or even the offensive security companies came to Brazil, and okay, let me hire some people in Brazil, they have the first challenge, the language. The second challenge is about the certification because our currency is less than dollar, the US dollar. So we should calculate 6 plus to the dollar. So imagine certification for offensive security is kind of $1,000 US dollar maybe, or in the like the kind of specifically just to understand in Brazil it's 6 times more than US dollar. So like for example, if you'd like to have the, let's suppose the offensive security certification, you should pay like once minimal salary, I think, or maybe less. In Brazil, we should pay for one certification, maybe 3 or 4 minimal salary. So just to comparing the minimal salary is totally high for Brazilian people to take this certification. This is the first challenge. And the second challenge for Brazilian people is they are using a lot of, as I said, video content. And unfortunately, there are kind of influencers. Let me put in double quotes here. The influencers of the hacking stuffs. When you go too deeply in these guys, the influencers, again, putting quotes, they don't have any experience in big companies or even in companies. They just putting content on Instagram or other social media. And they said, okay, we can hacking the gas station and you can expose everything. But that not happen this way. But they put in, like in the Instagram things, and the people, okay, these guys are real hacker, but doesn't work in the real life. And that's another challenge that we have for Brazilian people. And of course, the Brazilian community, the hacker community, I mean, they are trying to, guide those new generation. That's the first challenge in Brazil. So on the other hand, they should finish the college, but unfortunately, we have a few universities in Brazil that real specialists in cybersecurity and look into the offensive security perspective and the defensive perspective. We have a few in São Paulo. It's a big metropole in Brazil, but we have a gap when you think about other states in Brazil. On the other hand, when you talk about Europe, it's quite different because in Europe they are more mature when you talk about the cybersecurity because they can pay for certifications, not only offensive, but they can pay for SAM, for example, the most expensive certification. And but I think mainly for Portugal, it's more about in the college as well, the university. They don't have any, let's say, technical university focus on offensive security or offensive security. It's more about ISOs, normatives, you know what I mean? Guys, we have a software engineering college, but it's more focused on software development. When they have 1 or 2 lessons about cybersecurity, it's focused on normative, like kind of stuff. There's a kind of gap. And by the way, today I received the confirmation and invitation. It's a bit of a spoiler for your podcast. This is no one's know about that, but I will publish it tomorrow on LinkedIn maybe, but I will be invited to be one of the professors in master degree here in university in Portugal. So I will made a class there. One of the professors.
Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. It will be very nice challenge because the idea of this university is to bring specialists in the field inside of the academy, because you know how this works. Usually the university, they just teach doing how the students can do a research, but here in Portugal, they don't have an experience like in the practical way, how they can put in the enterprise perspective. And that is different. They focus more in research and academy research. but they invite me to be a professor because I have an experience in the enterprise and companies, and I can bring this experience to the students. So it will be very nice. I will start in September. And I think this is just answer your question. That's the challenge that I am seeing here in Brazil. When I talk in Brazil, I'm talking Latino American, you know what I mean? So Mexico behind, everything is the same. It's not different, basically. And of course, Mexico for Mexico and other countries in Latin America, they have a more challenge to take certification because it's expensive as well. The same challenge that we have in Brazil and Europe, as I said. So they can pay for the certification. I think the challenge is more for the university perspective.
Yeah, that's great and congrats again that you're doing that, because there's just so much that someone with real world experience can bring a university. Because I used to teach at Dallas College, and just some of the
Mhm.
things that people with real world experience can bring compared to someone that's purely academic. And one thing that's going to be a nice value you bring too is the fact that you do research, have done research in your jobs, and it's kind of a little bit different than some of the research they may do, because you're finding real world applications for it. You're actually using this research to help develop products, enhance products, and then
Yep.
some of the different trainings that you teach. So kind of, they were going down that conversation path. One of the things I think that's going to be great about this conversation with you is you can share your experience of what you've done to get opportunities, because you do public speaking, you teach workshops, and you work in research for these organizations. What you've done, there's been a way for you to take your career to the next level. And because sometimes people kind of get to a certain maxed out a certain level in certain roles, but what you've done is you've kind of just share kind of what you do now and how your career has evolved since you started working for companies that create different products.
Yeah, definitely. This is interesting, as you mentioned, because when we met in 2020, so was 5 years ago. You basically, my journey, like since 5 years ago. So I remember the first time we talked, and was 2020. I was starting to talk in US conference because in the end of 2019 was the first time that I talked in Europe. I remember that I talked in one conference in Poland, and after that, I spoke in conference in Berlin. It's more business conference, and then after that, I returned to live in Brazil, and I decided to submit some talks for the Grey Hack conference and the Red Team Village as well. So I remember I was super nervous because it's different when when you talk in some conference in Europe, when you talk in US, it's quite different because like for me it was a dream to talk in this type of conference, and that was the journey, like bring new things to the community since 2020. But before 2020, I spent 5 years prepare myself, like doing research about how the malware works, understand how should be the attacker mindset. And I know that I had a kind of gaps, not I have, but I still have some gaps in the field. I think that's my differentiator because I know my gaps and that's the key. I know what I should improve for the offensive perspective, for the defensive perspective, for the threat hunting perspective. I know exactly all gaps that I have, and I know that I need to increase my knowledge in those gaps. So that's one part of my understanding of my career. And the other thing that I could share with the guys is, okay, one of my main objective when I talking whatever event, and you heard my talk in the
Yeah.
Hackspace Con. I don't want to be the rock stars on stage. So heard the people, the feedback. Okay, your talk was super nice, very technical, and this is the guy. I don't like this. I like to share with the people, and they can put in those acknowledgement that I hate. And the guys heard of me in their jobs on the next Monday. So they can go to their jobs and they can put in this in practical. If they can do this, I have a success. If cannot do this, I failure. Basically, that's my main objective when I talk with the people in conference. So they should have anything to put in practical ways on Monday. I'm the speaker for Monday. That's my main challenge. They should put in practicals on Monday. If you cannot put in practicals on Monday, I failure. So that's my main objective in the conference. And when I talk, when I doing kind of chats with the people, when I advise people, if they cannot put in practical, I'm failure. So that's my main challenge. I cannot failure. I can bring the success. And the only way that I can do this, the students or even any people that heard me, are listening me, let's say, they can put in practice on Monday.
So yeah, it's been pretty amazing to see your career, how it's evolved. We've kind of done similar things with the public speaking and then working for vendors. Is kind of interesting how the whole vendor thing works as far as they like you to do public speaking. So if you work for some corporations, they don't want you to go speak, or you have to get permission, or legal has to review your presentation before you go speak at conferences. So that's one of the things that's kind of been attractive to me, is to work for vendors and consulting companies and that type of organizations. Makes it easier to be able to speak.
Yeah, definitely. Since 2020, I was working at Supernovation. This is a Brazilian company, but the company was bought by Itaú Bank in Brazil. And that time, I remember we created the ORSEC, one of the open source projects. And by the way, last year I spoke on Black Hat Arsenal. I shared these tools at Black Hat in US and Middle East as well. And was very nice because the company was involved with this creation of this open source project. The other years that I worked, I was working for some vendors, as you said. Segura, it's a Brazilian company. The company, the former Senha Segura, we changed the name, by the way. And I was involved with the creation product, in this case, more business product, let's say. But they give me the opportunity to bring new features to the product. And those features was just possible because I was doing research, understanding how the attacker exploring environment. So I knew how the Bloodhound works for the graph's way, for the offensive perspective, what was the shorter path for the attackers exploring Active Directories, for example. And we had a product and that focus on cloud, not only the Azure Hound or the Azure perspective. Yeah, I know that Bloodhound has Azure Hound because of that I mentioned, but that's the way we decide to create a kind of features from the product. So I made some labs, I made some research, and I create some content, and I bring technology to the product. So that's another part of my rule at Segura. So do investigations in the threat labs, the identity threat labs that I'm leading this project, and I can, based on this research that I'm doing, I can bring new technology to the product. And not only this, but when we, as I said, when we do kind of new research, or even not new research, but doing a kind of understanding how the attacker exploring identities or misconfigurations or explore non-human identities, I know and I learned something new. So based on that, I can share in the conference, as you said. So it's super nice when you have the company involved with you and, like sponsoring you, like, paying your tickets or paying your, like hotel to spread the message, not only the company, but I'm participating in many hacking communities like B-Sides. So I was talking B-Sides 321 in Chicago. I was talking in B-Sides São Paulo. B-Sides, I will talk in this year B-Sides João Pessoa in Brazil and Brasilia as well. And I have another, let's say, another spoiler for the podcast as well. Today I received another confirmation that I will lead the B-Sides port. The B-Side port was in freezing, and the last event will happen in 2021, 5 years ago. So I sent a message to the Jack Daniel, one of the founders. I talked with the guys besides Porto, and they decided, okay, we don't have a time to lead this project. So let's give this opportunity to Philip, and I can lead this project to bring more, experience to the Portugal community in the north, because we have beside Lisbon, a super big event in the south, but in the north we don't have any hack conference. So I will be responsible for organizing the B-Side Sport here, and that will be very nice, again, to share content, to share experience with the community. Not only this, but the thing that I like in B-Sides is because usually they happen inside of the university, and we can, bring this experience to the community and to the student as well. So it's a very nice, very, very nice.
Yeah, that's great. And I've heard of B-Sides Lisbon before.
Yeah. Besides, Lisbon is a very respectful B-Sides, not only in Portugal, but we have a very nice good speakers. The process is totally using the call for paper. They have a very nice committee to analyze those talks. It's a very respectful B-Sides when you talk about the all B-Sides in the world.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Or do you have any closing remarks before we end?
I think my advice for the people is just respect your journey, because I know that nowadays we want to grow fast in the career, in our life. But one of my advice is, first, respect your journey because we are talking with Phil. I met Phil 5 years ago and I was working 5 years before to meet him. So my journey in cybersecurity is about 10 years. 10 years is a journey. It's not about 10 days or even 10 months. It's about 10 years. I have a twins. The twins has 10 years. So it's a big journey. And this is the first advice. And the other remarks and advice is enjoy this journey because it's a very nice opportunity to enjoy everything and have a joy with your life, because you can do this more smooth if you want. If you prefer, you can decide it's a bad, go to another way. But my advice to you is enjoy every year, every step that you are doing in your career. That's the very nice way. When you go after 10 years looking behind your shoulders, okay, let me see what happened last 10 years. And you can, okay, I enjoy it, everything. So I'm here because I respect the journey. You can have a very nice success in your career. Definitely.
Awesome, man. It's been great seeing your career grow. You've done a lot. You've come a long ways. I mean, when we first met, you were very knowledgeable, but I've been really impressed with your presentations and all the speaking you're doing and all the things you're doing for the community. So keep up the good work.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. It was very nice last time. I remember the Hackspace Con when I started. I should start my talk when I looking in the room. I look at the guys, you, Chris from Barcode, and my friend Jordan was there. It's a very nice. It's like the presentation that I made was okay. It's a kind of chat with with your friends. For me, it was like, okay, that's a moment that I enjoy it a lot, because it's like, okay, this is very similar to, okay, we are in the table with friends discussing like we did on RSA. Remember the panel that we participated in at Virtual Village. So for me, the Hackspace Con was very like, okay, I'm here on the table with my friends, talk with the friends. So I really enjoyed it a lot. As I said, we can do, when you respect your journey and when you enjoy your journey, you will be happy. You have a joy. I decide to do it. When I did, I'm super happy. And thank you again for having me in the podcast. And I'm super happy to be here with you.
Yeah, it's great to have you. Always an honor to get to chat with you, and I look forward to the next time. And thanks everyone for joining the episode. If you enjoy the podcast, make sure to subscribe, share with your friends, and whatever platform you're consuming this episode from. If there's an option to be alerted to new episodes, please do. And thanks again for being a listener.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter @Phillip Wylie. Until next time.